Hello world, it's your boy B3 back with another kicking movie reaction review. That's kind of mainly what I've been doing, but only because I've just been binging horror films recently, you know? Started paying for Amazon Prime, well, just Prime Video, so I'm gonna get my money's worth, you know what I mean? We are also joined by Pip, as we have been the price you up short. Hey Pip, who's your good dog? Who is your good chungus? You are, because you're a good girl. But yeah, today we are finally reviewing a movie that I've been accidentally putting off, if you can believe that. Friday the 13th, Part 2, the sequel to the famous Friday the 13th. So it's from 1981, rated R, horror, mystery, suspense, about an hour and a half long. There are many places to watch it. All of which you pretty much have to rent it, though. And this is just streaming, obviously. You can get, like, a DVD or whatever. But, you can stream it on YouTube, Google Play Movies and TV, Vudu, Amazon Prime Video, where I watched it, and iTunes. Yes, it's got a 6.1 out of 10 on IMDb, a 27% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 26% on Metacritic, but 92% of Google users liked the film, so... But, quick read-up. The second entry in the long-running horror series focuses on a group of teenage would-be counselors converging on Camp Crystal Lake for training under the tutelage of head counselor Paul, played by John Furet. Inevitably, Paul relates the story of Jason Voorhees, who it says is played by Warrington Gillette, but let's see, the thing about this movie is the guy credited as playing Jason Voorhees in this movie only plays him in the scene where you see his face. In all the scenes where he's covered up, he's played by, like, a stuntman who was completely uncredited and who was apparently very upset about it. And I would have been upset about it, too. Like, Hollywood used to have this thing where they just, like, didn't want to credit the people whose faces weren't shown, and that's always really weird. But, yeah, and then the stuntman who played him the whole film actually got a credit in the second film when they used flashback footage of him. So that's nice, at least. But Jason Voorhees, a boy who drowned at the camp and whose mother murdered a group of counselors in revenge. No one takes the tale seriously until very much alive. Jason begins gruesomely eliminating people. Released on April 13th, 1981 in the US of A. Directed by Steve Miner. Budget, $1 million. Box office, 21.7 million bucks, quite the profit. And the screenplay is by Ron Kurtz. Yeah, and it's apparently at the time of recording this playing on Encore in 2 days. Huh. I mean, it won't be on Encore by the time this review goes up, so I don't know why I said that, but it's got Amy Steele, Adrienne King, Kristen Baker, and Betsy Palmer. Betsy Palmer is just in flashbacks, you know. But yeah, I think it's a good movie. I actually think it's better than the first one, even though it's almost the exact same movie. It's almost the exact same movie. Bunch of counselors at a camp. They're told they shouldn't be there. A killer kills them off one by one, and the shots of Jason killing them are like it's shot the exact same way as the mother killing them. But see, the reason it was shot that way for the mother, Pamela, killing them was because they didn't want to reveal it was a woman. The whole twist in that movie was a woman is the killer. Wow, can you believe a woman killed? Which is kind of a pretty weak fucking twist these days. Whenever I see a twist and the twist is just, it's someone of the opposite gender you thought, it's like, what a shitty twist. That's not a twist. All genders can do things. Like, what? Weird. Very weird. But, in this one, it's just straight up an undead Jason running around. But they're hiding him. When they do reveal him, it's actually very effective, though. So it's a good thing they hit him, but I guess they're just hiding him for a different reason, just because they want kind of a cool reveal. But the thing about this movie is Jason doesn't really look cool. He doesn't get his hockey mask until the third film, his iconic hockey mask. In this, he has a bag over his head with one eye hole. That's what he looks like in this movie. I still want the ultimate NECA figure of it, but yeah. He doesn't get the hockey mask till the next film. But it kind of starts off with him killing off the previous survivor of the last film, which is kind of just the thing that slasher movies do. And it might have been started by Friday the 13th. In fact, I think it might have been, because I think Jamie Lee Curtis is in Halloween 2, but I still don't think she's killed in it. I haven't seen Halloween 2. Sorry. I gotta rent all these. They're all for rent, so, it's money. So I always watch a lot of the free Prime videos between rentals, So, we get her killed, and then there's another camp. I don't know. I guess they think it's safe to do this camp because, one, they're not doing it at Camp Crystal Lake. It's like on the opposite side of the lake of Camp Crystal Lake on a brand new campground with a very experienced camp counselor who has run multiple camps. And I'm talking about the head honcho, like the boss. And then even many of the counselors are people who have been counselors before. I think almost all of them have been counselors under him before. But they still act basically exactly like the teens from the last movie. They're the exact same characters as the teens from the last film. Slasher movies are kind of infamous for that, to be completely honest. All the characters are going to be killed anyway, so I develop them. There were a couple I found the characters in this film just a slight bit more likable than the ones in the first film. Like, when the wheelchair guy and the woman who are into him, when they get killed, I'm sad about it because they were like really nice people. A lot of the people in the camp are just jerks. Like one guy's a perv, and then there's always like the wild prankster guy, but those two were like really nice, and they seemed to have like a real connection. And then when they got killed, I was like, oh shit. So I was sad they died. I really was, but I also knew who would survive from the beginning of the film because you can always tell who the survivor is gonna be. You just can, right from the beginning of the film. Except in Nightmare on Elm Street, that film psyched me out because they killed Tina and they were really focusing on Tina, and I was like, oh, guess she's not the main character. But yeah, the woman you expect to survive in this movie is the one that survives, right? Jason has a pretty good body count in this film. He is undead. The best part of this movie, it seems like Jason kills a dog at one point, right? Because you see the dog walk up to Jason, and then later you see a dead dog, but it's really, really mangled, and then it turns out that was just like a different stray dog, and the regular dog is alive. So there's still a dead dog, but the dog that was at the camp lived, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, Jason's doing his thing. He's killing. I kind of like silent killers, I'm not gonna lie. Pamela Voorhees was a silent killer until she was revealed to be the killer. Once she was revealed to be the killer, she wouldn't shut up, right? I prefer a silent killer over a chatty killer any day. Really, I do. So I do like Jason as a killer more than his mother, which is probably why Jason went on to be in all the films after this and not Pamela. Also, she was dead, but they could have done an undead thing with her too. I actually had a pretty cool idea where her severed head would be like carried around by him and give him commands. That would be a really cool thing to do, right? Because at some point in the film, we find Jason's shack. We see it earlier, and then a cop is killed in it after he sees something terrible, but we don't see the terrible thing. So when that happened, I was like, okay, the film is going to take us back to Jason's shack, and it does. In his shack, he has a shrine to his mother with that big sweater she wore draped over it, and then her, like, severed head from the first film is sitting on it, like, rotting away. And, yeah, it's pretty freaky. And, like, all his victims, he's been taking the bodies and piling them up in like a ring around the shrine. And I was like, that's pretty fucked. That's really, really cool. It was sick. I really liked it. And There was also kind of a part where our female lead, uh, Jenny, I believe was the character's name, she puts on the sweater when Jason's breaking in, and she's also kind of blonde like the mother, and she like tries to trick him into thinking she's his mother, and it kind of works until she moves to the right a little bit, and then Jason can see her severed head, and he's like, "You fucking bitch!" and he tries to kill her, but then Paul breaks in, the guy who created the camp, and they get out of there. I thought Paul was dead, but it turns out he was alive. And then they like stab Jason. Eventually, they get him, and he like falls down like he's dead, but he's undead. So of course, it doesn't really do anything. He's an undead supernatural killer, unlike his mother, who was just a killer. But then they go back, they unmask him, and they like have this horrible reaction like to his face, and they didn't show us the face, and I was like, well, he's going to come back, and we're going to see the face. And that's exactly what happened. They calm us down with the return of the dog, and then Jason like bursts through the window and grabs Jenny. And the crazy thing is, I knew it would happen. I was like, Jason's going to jump out at any second. And it still scared me. That was the only... There were two scenes in the film. When we first see Jason's bagged head, when he like pops up and he's like, blah, 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 blah. That made me go, ooh. And then when he popped through the window and grabbed her maskless, I was like, that got me too. So, yeah, both of Jason's big appearances in the film are effective, quite effective. Really liked him, but he like wrestles her to the ground in slow motion. Fun fact: she was actually terrified during that scene. Yeah, she was actually terrified during that scene, like because it was this loud, specialized like film. Because recording slow motion back in the day was a lot harder than it is today, and it's still more difficult than you would think, actually. But yeah, she would always tense up and be scared when the film started because she knew she was about to get like someone was about to smash through a window and grab her. So yeah, it was like a genuine scared reaction, which was really nice. And then it kind of skips to the morning. It kind of fades into the morning, where we see her strapped to a stretcher and she's getting loaded into an ambulance. And you're like, oh crap, how did she survive? Are they going to explain it in exposition? Hopefully better exposition than Bone Jangles had. I didn't mention it in that review because there was so much to say, but Bone Jangles had terrible exposition. This film, it's all right. The exposition's all right, you know. Exposition's always kind of whatever, but you know, good job. So they slide her in, and the whole time she's going, "Wait, where's Paul? Where's Paul?" Because like he must have been the one to save her, but we don't see his fate, and we don't see Jason's fate, and we don't see how she got out of it. And that was actually really well done. That was quite well done. Because I'm sitting there and I'm like, whoa, 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 wait, what the fuck happened to Paul? What the actual fuck happened to Paul? Someone tell me what happened to Paul. And the movie just ends. It doesn't tell you what happened to Paul. And I was like, fuck. And I think the next film begins like during the end of the last film. Like, I watched the trailer for the next film, and it seems like the new group of teenagers is actually driving by that camp, and they see her getting loaded into the ambulance. So maybe we'll find out what happens to Paul. I'm just gonna assume his ass is dead. He like died fighting off Jason, and maybe injured Jason to the point where he had to retreat or something. I don't know. I haven't seen the third one. But that was very interesting, because it also leaves it open for a sequel. Because the first film set up a sequel by showing that Jason was, in fact, active. I don't want to say alive, active. And then this film just ends with, like, leaving Jason's fate completely open. So if they wanted to stop it and not make another one, they could say, oh, Jason was killed by Paul. But if they wanted to make another one, they could say, well, you didn't see what happened to Jason, so he got away. He's coming back, and he is coming back, and he'll probably never stop coming back for the rest of time. One time the dude got blown up, and he still came back, so... yeah. But the, oh, look at this girl. Yeah, but the movie was pretty good. I liked it more than the first one. I thought the first one's twist was weak, and... I guess depending on your point of view is whether or not Pamela or Jason is scarier. I think Jason's a little scarier because he's literally unkillable, for one thing, and I just find silent killers to be scarier, right? Because lots of villains and stuff in movies, the ones that like to talk, are usually the ones that get defeated because they like to talk. But if the bad guy is completely silent, then you can't get the upper hand on him while he's monologuing or stuff, and you can't figure out like his motivations because he won't just tell you. And something about that is like that's much scarier to me. But also, I can see people thinking Pamela Voorhees is scarier. I can completely see that because Jason can't blend in a crowd or something. Like if you run, like Jason can't hide very well in an urban setting because he's so monstrous and he has to keep his face covered and everything. And his clothes are always torn and gross. Like he wouldn't be able to blend in an urban setting. Pamela Voorhees could blend into an urban setting very well. So she, like, if you're just in the town of Crystal Lake, then you're really not in any danger. But if you're near the lake, then he's going to get you. But Pamela could kill you in the town, you know? And also, one thing about Pamela is that she's a killer that could actually exist. You know? In the real world, Pamela Voorhees could theoretically exist, while Jason could not. And that kind of makes her scarier, because then you're watching the original one and you're like, this could fucking happen. You know? But I'm also not a horny teenager, so I don't think Pamela Voorhees would have much of a problem with me. That's fun. But yeah, Friday the 13th Part 2 I thought was better than the original. Not by much, but I did think it was better than the original. It doesn't really have much of a twist to it, like the first one did, but, you know, it's whatever. I think it's a good film. One funny thing I just want to point out, like I noticed some continuity errors. Like there was one scene where curtains just magically appear on a window, and in that same scene, I think, like, because that's the lady who was gonna fuck the wheelchair guy. She was barefoot in the cabin, and then when she walks outside, she has shoes on, but we never see her put shoes on. Also, we have one more thing I was going to say. You know what? I just forgot it. Ruh-roh. But it's what... now I remember. Lots of older movies have, like, flashbacks and scenes from the original film in them. And the reason they did that was because home video wasn't as common, and this was a rated R movie, so it wasn't really airing on television, you know? So it would often be like... So it's like between the time that people saw the first one and this one was like a full year. It was a full year. They made this movie pretty quickly, actually. But it's been a full year since they've seen the film, so they got to do a little recap. But in the recap, they show, like in the flashback, they show Pamela Voorhees, and then it shows her flashback to Jason drowning. So there's a flashback within the flashback. I thought that was pretty funny. But that's it for Friday the 13th Part 2. Good film. I recommend it. But that is it. Thank you all very much for your support. Remember to rate, comment, subscribe. Check out all the cool links in the description below. Facebook, Twitter, etc. And I'll see you all next time.